Hey everyone, and welcome to Big Red Homestead. I'm Josh, that's Caleb, and today we are T-minus like a week from the spring game. It's finally here. Football is back, at least for a little bit. We're in the middle of spring ball, and the transfer portal's open, so things can get crazy. Today we're talking about the three existential questions facing Nebraska in this spring game, the storylines you have to know and have to be aware of this weekend. It's going to be a wild one. Caleb, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. Again, all these press conferences, the football and player interviews, it's been exciting. I've been really looking forward to this Husker football season more than I have been in
You don't say.
quite a few years.
Could
Obviously,
there be a reason why?
Matt Rhule, yes. And I think we're going to talk about that later in this video with the quarterbacks, specifically the QB battle, as no starter has been announced. They're changing the depth chart every day.
They keep mentioning this QB battle, and we have lots. That'll be an interesting one for sure. So today we're going to get through all three of these huge questions, and it's interesting because yes, on the defensive side, at first glance, it can look like it's all lined up. We kind of know who's going to be there. We know the usual suspects on the defensive side, but there is a certain specific positional group that I think has some questions underneath the surface. Same goes on the offensive side. So let's start here. And let's talk about the wide receivers and what to expect, not just in the spring game, but even looking forward a little bit to the season. But what are your thoughts here on the wide receiver room? What do you want to see in this spring game? And your thoughts on all these new guys and what this room could look like on Saturday?
I mean, in short, I'm excited. The wide receiver room looks to be more full than last year. Last year, it felt
by
like
a large margin.
Again, going into the season, you and I were both worried. There wasn't a lot going for us. Marcus Washington really being the only proven guy. And besides that, we were unsure. That was all really true, as we saw throughout the season. Marcus Washington got hurt, was really what we had. And Heinrich Haarberg, he was throwing to, Lloyd and Malachi worked at times, but there was nothing sustained throughout that we could really rely on. And I think that's
Billy
gonna
Kemp,
be the opposite.
it's like
and he got hurt as well as the season goes on. IGC goes down. Everybody that you kind of thought might give us some production, but again, nobody that we were like, oh, this person's like an all Big Ten player. No, and then now moving to this year, we have some transfers that we're really excited about. We have, Malachi and Lloyd have had another year. And then specifically, though, I think the wide receiver room starts with Jamal Banks, the transfer from Wake Forest. Again, big-bodied, proven, lots of years, lots of reps. Something that our wide receiver room needed. We needed an injection of experience, and we got that this year with Jamal Banks. And his highlight tape is really exciting. A red zone threat.
Yeah, that's the thing, man.
We needed. Our red zone efficiency wasn't great, especially passing, because we didn't have those big targets. Our tight ends, while Fedoni, he was again young, lots of injuries, and was okay. With Heinrich Haarberg, he was an okay threat on the red zone. Banks gives us that. Again, he can reach the cookie jar, the top shelf threat, somebody that can get places that others can't. And I think that with Jamal Banks and, probably, maybe Dylan Raiola, I think this is going to be a great combination that I'm really excited to see in the spring game and just how this works
what would
out.
you hope to see exactly from Jamal Banks in this situation? Obviously, like you said, he goes up and high points the ball. He's super physical. And that's where he wants to thrive. He wants to make the physical catches, play on the outside. So, as the kind of lead X receiver for this team, what do you hope to see, with Raiola, with these quarterbacks, the connection, and then specifically just how do you want to see him play?
Obviously, I'm hoping that he can get the highlight catch in the end zone. That would be really great for us. I think all of the Husker Nation would feel really good going into the season, especially because we have a really solid secondary. So I think if we could see, 4 or 5 catches from him, a good connection, him, again, making solid moves, I think that's where, again, across the middle, if he could just be more than just athletic, we could see some good footwork. I think that would be really exciting for Husker football. And then also, just 4 or 5 catches would be really nice. A clear connection be made. And he had solid hands and a great catch radius inside the tape. So if we could just see more of that, affirm that inside the Husker uniform, I think that we'd all be feeling really good going into football season.
I mean, it's hard not to be excited about him because on PFF last year, in deep balls last year, I had a 93.9 rating on PFF. 95.6 on medium, 10 to 19 yards, and 91.2 on short, 0 to 9. I mean, his grades were sky high all the way. And when you pair that with a quarterback like Dylan Raiola, who wants to go downfield and wants to take some shots and has a nice deep ball and has really good touch towards the sidelines, it's hard not to get excited.
Yeah.
When you pair that with the physicality and the already proven repertoire that Jamal Banks has. So yeah, I mean, for me, obviously it starts there without a doubt. But the bigger questions arise, of course, when you talk about the other positions, the wide receiver, the slot, and exactly who's going to be there. Because right now, I don't think it's a guarantee with Malachi Coleman out there, because Isaiah Nair, a transfer from Texas, previously at Wyoming, coming off of an injury from 2 years ago where he played healthy a little bit at Texas, but barely got to play. He's really competing for this job. And with Malachi injured this spring and not playing this spring, it's given Nair a chance to build that connection that with the quarterbacks and show off of his speed and his athleticism. And he's got a lot of hype from the coaches so far. So what are your thoughts here on Malachi? There's not a bigger Malachi Coleman fanboy than you. Does this worry you a little bit when it comes to Nair stepping in here, having the time versus Coleman being out?
I mean, it's definitely a concern, but I also think
as a fanboy,
yeah,
it's good for Nebraska, I think.
But I think it's good for Nebraska. And also, you know, Nair had a lot of trouble. He had a big injury that obviously really sidelined him from Texas. We saw the amazing thing he did at Wyoming. That tape is just ridiculous.
2021.
And so fun
insane
to watch. Yeah,
but that was 2021.
Exactly. We are in 2024, 2025. And that was a long time ago. But if he can even be 75% of that, then he's definitely going to be on the field and would be ahead of Malachi in the depth chart, I think, in that sense. But also, I think because we're going to be throwing the ball so much more, Malachi's going to see the field plenty in 4 wide receiver sets. Last year, we had 2 wide receivers on the field because our offensive line wasn't that good, so we needed the extra blocking. And B, we didn't have wide receivers in the first place, literally just the healthy bodies, so that wasn't going to work. And so this year, I think, you know, just with the offense going to change so much, new OC, better players in those positions, I think you'll see the field plenty. Boy, yeah, better quarterback. You know,
I mean, we passed the ball only 37.76% of the time last year, which was 127th out of 132.
Yeah.
So we're going to bump it up at least a little bit this year for sure. So,
but I would also,
you're going to have more snaps to go around for wide receivers.
I mean, the coaches, we can usually buy the hype on what they're saying, but also Nair, I mean, he has a lot of question marks. He's a prove it to me. Just on
so then, yeah, when it comes to the spring game, what would it take to prove it to you? What do you want to see? The speed over the top, the physicality, the athleticism.
Yeah, I mean, speed. I mean, he looked like he ran some phenomenal routes when he was in that Wyoming stuff. I mean, his step, his cuts,
his length.
If we see, I mean, anything like that in the spring game, then especially the speed aspect and then some of that route running capability. I mean, because he had the hands the whole way. I mean, he's probably not going to lose that. So if that's there, then yeah, watch out. Our wide receiver core is then now stacked. I mean, he has a couple years left, and if he looks anything like that, I mean, he might not need the medical waiver because he was that good where he could be a pro guy, where he could be all Big Ten and off.
If he has another breakout season here, it's like a prove it situation, then maybe it's possible. But he has the build where it's like at least interesting. But I mean, generally, when you're coming off of 3 years of no production, 2022, 2023, 2024 now, so 2 years of no production, heading into this third year, it's rare. It's rare to see that breakout. I mean,
I agree.
Like what would be an example of a stat line in this game or like a play that he could make that you'd be like, wow, you know? I mean, would it have to be like multiple deep ball touchdowns, not just one, but like 2?
I don't think it has to be one, but if I see him blow by one of our experienced DBs, you know,
and replicate it more than once, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, even once, because we just haven't seen anything from him in a couple of years. If we can even see a flash, then you feel good. So, yeah. I mean, that's what I'm hoping to see. Just anything, sign of life, a pulse.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard good things about him from camp. He played 8 snaps at Texas in 2 years.
So we see 8 snaps in the spring game. It's like, wow, he's turned the corner.
Right. Yeah. And so he's one of the most interesting storylines to me. And at this point, if you had just early predictions, if you had to put the odds, if you're an odds maker for who's going to start week 1, Nair or Malachi Coleman out at that wide position across from Jamal Banks, who would you put your money on?
I mean, it's shoulder stuff for Malachi Coleman, so I think there'll be a good competition. I think this coaching staff really leans on experience, though, and they really do evaluate. We saw that even last year.
Well, and building for the future.
Yeah, so I'd see Nair starting, probably.
Really?
I think I would, yeah.
I actually still lean the Coleman side. Like, the hype is just hype right now with Nair. I mean, the spring game for me is like, to me, he would have to have like 2 huge like incredibly impressive moments, multiple, for me to think like, okay, this might be the real deal. Otherwise, it's kind of like going to come off as like the IGC hype where 2 years ago we thought like, okay, he might be something here. And he just never translated. He had a little bit of the flash, but it just never worked out. And so to me, that's why you need to see that flash first off in the spring game more than just once for me to really think. We know what Malachi can do. And so
I think
Malachi's
another
younger,
year in, he's going to be better.
That's what I'm saying. So
he's fast. I mean,
to me,
that's
it's
why
like,
I'm not too worried about it, even if Nair does get the start, just because I think that both are going to see I think Malachi is going to see the field plenty no matter what. So I think Nair, if he actually is seeing the field, is just a bonus. But what a bonus it could be.
I would still give Malachi probably 70% chance to start week 1, maybe even 80. But, Nair having this spring though, he went from 0 to already like 20 in my mind. So that's a pretty nice spring for Nair. And then if the spring game could push him to like a 60-40 or a 50-50, now you're talking about a really special player. So that's what, at least from a Husker fan's perspective, you want to see Nair go out there and dominate.
Oh, 100%.
So, I mean, then I think there is an interesting debate here still at slot. I mean, there has been still some hype about the comeback for Isaiah Garcia-Castaneda. He's not playing in the spring, but you still got Jalen Lloyd, you've got Jaden Doss, Alex Bullock, and a bunch of younger players as well. They're all competing for these spots. So when you look at the slot and the next layer of guys, like who are you most interested in? Let's just start with the slot here. How do you see that playing out?
I mean, in my eyes, Lloyd was as valuable as a player as it came last year. He's the reason we won games because of his big touchdowns. Right. He's so fast. And I think he has, again, comparing him and Malachi, who both had big touchdowns at big moments, I think Lloyd looks a little bit more the part in wide receiver. And I think it is his spot to lose in the slot. Agree. I think that Doss is interesting, and I would way rather see him see time than IGC or Bullock. I don't want either of them to see the field, to be honest. They haven't done anything the last 2 years. They're not that productive. If Lloyd hasn't progressed enough where the coaches still see them getting playing time, I think that's very unfortunate and a bad sign for our team, because I think that Lloyd is legit and the dude, and I think Doss could be as well. But I don't think IGC or Bullock is the direction that this team is headed.
No, I mean, especially like Bullock, to me, he's a perfectly fine. A guy gets banged up, throw him in for a drive, Yeah, fine.
100%.
Fair enough. But like if he's out there week 1 or week 2 starting first drive, I'm going to be really about, like, I'm just going to be pissed because it's hard. I don't think I can fully accept that Alex Bullock, from what we saw last year, he struggled in plenty of situations, average at best, disappeared in others, and just disappeared at worst. Yeah, versus the potential of, like you said, Jalen Lloyd or Jaden Doss or even some of these freshmen. I mean, we watched, if you were on the Patreon, we reacted to Ja'Cory Barney Jr.'s
He's exciting film. Too, yeah, 100%.
He's exciting, man. He's exciting. And we'll talk more about him. We're going to be putting out a video about the players to watch, the upcoming players to watch in the spring game. And I'm sure we're going to talk about Ja'Cory Barney. But to me, he's exciting. I'm going to be circling him in the spring game. And you have Keelan Smith, Demetrius Bell from last year as well, redshirting. So there's other guys here that I'm excited to see in the spring game. And I really want to see one of those guys step in now that Coleman's not there for the spring game and make some plays here with a variety of quarterbacks. And so I'm really looking at all these guys, and whoever ends up being the guy that really stands out, like the guy who makes the big plays, is probably going to be the guy I'll be really looking forward to heading into the fall. Whoever it ends up being.
Lloyd is having a good year at track thus far. I love the track star. Again, he had the highest top end speed. speed absolutely kills. That's something that the coaching staff preaches. So if it is not Lloyd, who is the fastest player on our team, most likely second to Malachi Coleman, then what are we doing? So I think it has to be him. And again, I think he has a lot of wide receiver skill too. So I'm excited, and I think he is definitely that guy.
Right. Logically, it's like, the problem last year with the receivers was like they just weren't technically very sound when it came to route running, but they could run flies and they could run deep posts, and it worked when we needed it to.
And we have a QB that can really make that work this year. I think
this year it's exciting, 100%. So I think the receiving core for me is without a doubt insanely interesting. So now let's go on to the defensive side and talk about the position that I think is surprisingly not talked about much. We
lost the most,
but we did lose the most production from this position. And the question is like, there's a lot of solid pieces here, but we're not sure exactly who's next up, especially in the case of injuries. And that's the linebacker position here. Right now, the bodies returning from last year, guys like Javen Wright, John Bullock, Mekhi Byer. And then at Jack, you've got MJ Sherman, Princewill Umanmielen, and then Stephen Thompson's coming in from Syracuse. We watched his film as well on the Patreon and from out of the transfers video. And he was really impressive, but the coaches have said he's had a slow transition. He was kind of out of football shape, and he's just starting to get back into it now. So the talk hasn't been as positive about him. So there's a few younger guys behind these guys, but what are your thoughts on this position as a whole? How comfortable are you with Javen Wright, John Bullock, Mekhi as kind of the middle linebacker and outside linebackers, and the Jack position right now with Thompson, Sherman, and Princewill? Yeah,
I think you said it with the fact that I think we have a lot of good guys that start, but then the depth is a lot at question. And again, it's a really young position. Again, last year, our linebacker position was the weak spot of the defense, in my opinion, even though
definitely,
I think everybody would clearly say that, even though Nick Henrich did improve, which I didn't think was possible. Especially, after
coming off the injury
and everything else. So he was actually better at run stop. And then, we lost a lot of this position, and I think that I'm so excited to see what Princewill could do year two. I cannot wait. And then I think Mekhi has more of a question mark for me. He had flashes, but he also had some real moments that were iffy and some big misses. So I think that Mekhi still has a lot to prove, a lot to improve on. The dreaded PFF grades. He did have some high points, but he really had some lows.
He finished with a 55.5 on the season.
Yeah, and I definitely say he was below average, and his tackling wasn't amazing.
No.
And then,
overall, I think it was more like he didn't really flash in any specific field. Like at moments he got to the quarterback, at moments he made some tackles at the line of scrimmage, but he was super inconsistent and seemed to like not play as fast as he should be playing, almost as if he was struggling with the defense at times. I don't know. It was a weird situation.
Compared to Javen and Princewill, I think they're on their own tier where they're super good, and you can't wait for them to play more.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like Javen Wright,
and
he's
Bullock
kind of alone right now.
That's
what I'm saying. Yeah. Javen right now is kind of alone at middle linebacker. It's like in a world where he got hurt. Yeah. And again, Javen, yes, he's good, and he's pretty good in pass. He's good in pass coverage. He can get to the quarterback, so he's a pretty well-rounded player. But he also had moments last year where he struggled as well. So it's not like he was bulletproof either. So,
no, for sure.
And then you've got John Bullock,
but he also switched positions last year, which is just crazy.
Right. And John Bullock was coming from safety to linebacker, so it was his first year at linebacker. So we've heard Dvorak, and we've heard Tony White.
Bullock is not good in coverage. Bullock, we need to just be a run stop guy,
and that's same with Byer,
and a pass rush guy. Yeah, and the same with Mekhi. So the guys need to drop back. That's where you're hoping again, like freshmen, like Shavers, who's coming in. You're hoping that he's a guy who then can fill in yet again. I think with Vince, though, we've seen good things from our freshman linebackers. I think part of it is because we just haven't built up the full pantry that we've needed. Again, just it being the cupboard, we haven't filled it up yet because it's just year two of the coaches. But we've seen that the freshmen have done enough that I think it can be okay. But I do think, though, that Thompson from Syracuse will be good. He did look bigger. I think in Syracuse, he was kind of a tweener guy where he was really on the D. He was kind of a D end, kind of a linebacker at times.
He got bigger. And so then at the beginning, he was like more of like a traditional outside linebacker.
I'd say
and then
his
he
freshman
moved to
sophomore
Jack.
tape. Yeah, I think his freshman sophomore year, he looked better than he did the junior tape, which I think we both agree on. So I think they want him to lose that weight, and I think that's probably good for him to be where
they did say they didn't think he was in football shape.
So
now
that
he's
actually makes me
starting to
excited.
get back there. So hopefully, if he can shed some pounds, and maybe they have a plan for him to be more of like that backup to Javen Wright, or to play outside linebacker or something like that. Because I mean, I think we're all pretty comfortable with MJ Sherman and Princewell at Jack. If those two played, I think we're chilling there. Princewell's a beast. Sherman's really, really solid. So like, I don't really feel like we need to rotate Thompson, Sherman, and Princewell at Jack. No. So when it comes to the spring game, Princewell's
and he did play middle. I'd love Thompson at middle linebacker. Personally,
yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, if he was middle linebacker and then Javen was outside linebacker and then you had Princewell and Sherman playing, that'd be nice.
Yeah, and I think Bullock's a guy that, again, he's good in the pass rush and you want him for those situations, but you don't want to have you don't want to be a play in, play out type of guy with John Bullock. You want him to come into the pass rush situations, the run stop situations, not dropping him into coverage, because that was a real weakness for the team last year consistently. And that's just not putting him in a position to win when, again, he is a good player in those two spots, in run stop and in pass rush, but he is not good in
last year he had
coverage.
grades. His grades was a 71.2 in run defense, really respectable, 67 in tackling, 67 in pass rush, but then a 56 in coverage.
Yeah, he just over and over it hurt us. And we don't need to put him in that spot.
Yeah, that lines up. Yeah, I mean, I agree. In the spring game, what would you be hoping to see from these guys? Or what do you hope to see from an alignment perspective? Princewell's hurt, so keep that in mind. He will not be playing. So
I don't need to see anything from Princewell.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree. So when it comes to like maybe Stephen Thompson, then he's probably the guy you're circling.
Yeah,
see how he lines up.
Him? Yeah, where are we putting him? Because he kind of played every position at Syracuse. They floated him all around. As he moves. So where are we putting him? And what shape is he in? So if he's dropped the weight or he's a little bit quicker, because he was strong and a freak and I mean really impressive. So I think that he's a guy that should start for us. But we'll see.
Yeah. So Stephen Thompson got hurt in 2022. So in 2021, he played 318 inside the box as a linebacker and then played 326 snaps at D line. But senior year, he played 234 on D-line and only 118 as a linebacker. Yeah. So you can see by senior year, he moved almost exclusively, well, not exclusively, but 67% of the time he was on the line, lined up there as a D-lineman. So yeah, we'll see. If he sheds the pounds, then it's interesting. So you did quickly mention it was like a drive-by. You drive-by mentioned Vince Shavers, but he has been getting a ton of hype from basically every coach. I mean, Mekhi Beyer also, when he was asked who's the player that stood out to you the most in the spring, he immediately said Vince Shavers. And and Matt Rhule even said, I don't use freshman nicknames. He said, I would never use a freshman nickname, but they do call him V9. And so he says, and Rhule said he's earned the right to be talked about. So there is some hype here. And what we did learn from the coaches last year was if you follow what the coaches are doing with where the players are playing and you listen to what they're saying, generally it lines up. We heard the most about Princewell, Cam Lenhart, and
they also showed out in the spring game, by the way.
And then we also heard on the offensive side about, these freshman wide receivers who were going to get some time at some point, and they did. Oh, Deshaun Singleton, they talked about him a ton in the spring, and he ended up being the breakout for us at the beginning of the year. So it seems like we can trust him. So far, the
smoke was fire, and it was not the same in the last regimes, but 100%. If they talk about them, they mean it, and I can't agree more. And again, hearing him, I mean, we watched the film, and the pro comp, he's a little undersized. Remind us a lot of Levante David in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's a hallowed name. You can't. You only can whisper that around here. He reminds us of Levante David.
Yeah, obviously. Just in the body type and the kind of linebacker he is, we're not saying that he's going to break our single season tackles record. Like Levante
he's totally
David
not going to break the single season tackle record.
But he did look good. And again, it was great because he was fast and a little undersized. He could do a lot. He would look good in coverage. And he still, even when covering the tight ends, did a good job of bringing them down. He was impressive again, he looks undersized in the run stop. But again, just time after time, we kept watching like, man, that's a great tackle. And like, and again, even when he's up against those high school D linemen, he could get to the quarterback. He looked strong to bounce off him.
He was fast. And that's what the players kept saying. Like Mekhi said it, and also the coach said he flies around. He flies around the field. So it's that speed, it's that burst, it's that agility that shows off. He was a running back as well in high school. So he has that ability. So it is interesting. I'm excited to see him. And for me, he's a big narrative for the spring game, as well as Stephen Thompson, and how they'll fit in exactly with where they're going to play Mekhi and John Bullock. And how often do you think Mekhi and John Bullock could be on the field at the same time? I feel like it'd be pretty rare. I hope they're on the field at the same time.
I think, yes, with what we feel the skill sets are, I feel like we both believe they're the weakest links at the linebacker spot at this point, or the most one-dimensional. They aren't the complete package like the other linebackers are. So we want them in only in specific spots. And so, I mean, again, like you said, luckily, we both feel they're kind of the same. They're both pass rushing linebackers.
Well, I would say Mekhi's a better in pass defense. So
yeah, that's fair.
If anything, you want to see Mekhi out there on third down, John Bullock out there on first and second, maybe. And so I'll be watching that, see the usage in the spring game for sure. So the final topic here is the one we've all been waiting for. I mean, we got to talk about the quarterbacks here. Obviously, the coaches keep talking about this quarterback debate
battle.
They set up a whole spring practice team system so that all three of these quarterbacks could be their own quarterback captains. Go Bug Eaters. Exactly. And they built it out so that there could be this like quarterback battle in the spring and go from there. So, I mean, is there any smoke here at all? Is there? No. What would a QB need to do to beat out Dylan Raiola? Is there any possible world where Raiola could lose it out? Like, give me your thoughts here on the spring game, what you'd want to see.
I mean, they'd have to move heaven and earth. I mean, honestly, I really think. I mean, this player.
How many picks would Dylan have to throw, and how many touchdowns would either of
I don't think it's how bad
Harburg
Dylan plays. I think Heinrich Harburg would need an arm transplant of Tom Brady's to really change.
This just did.
So I think that's what it would take. I think Kalen's interesting, but again, I think he's a guy that needs to develop. He's smaller. His arm's not as big. So I think, again, I like the fact that he's accurate. He's seen some good throws on the tape, but I still think he's the third string guy. If I wanted somebody to enter in the QB, it's probably Heinrich Harburg second for me because of the dual threat. He's won games before and he knows the system better. I think that's who I would rather trust as the backup QB at this point.
That's an interesting argument.
I think Kalen's interesting, and I think he can be good and successful. But call me junior year. Call me his junior year.
Isn't Kalen more likely to replicate the type of play that Dylan Raiola is going to put on the field? I mean, Harburg is just, he runs the ball. He can't throw. At least Kalen, maybe he can. We don't really know in live action.
The good news is, with Fedoni with a big target, maybe with Jamal Banks, it's going to look better. Maybe with, again, bigger wide receivers.
Different quarterback coach.
Yeah, a new quarterback coach. All of, a quarterback coach, honestly. I mean, not to be made to Marcus Satterfield or anything, but that just wasn't his expertise, right?
Fair.
He was a tight end coach. And, hey, Heinrich Harburg, highest graded tight end on the team with his one catch. So, he did a good job. But I want Heinrich Harburg as the backup because he was able to win us 5 games. I think he's a competitor, and I don't think Kalen's ready. Even though I've heard him take big steps, I don't think he's backup material.
So with that said, then, what are your expectations for this little guy named Dylan Raiola in the spring game? What do you want to see from him? What type of performance do you want to see? Is there a worst case scenario and a best case scenario? How excited could you get after the spring game about Dylan Raiola?
If we see a 50-yard bomb that is just on, so they posted the hype video and they had him throw like a 50-yard touchdown pass or something, and whenever we see a 50-yard touchdown pass at Nebraska, it is some great Herculean effort by Kenny Bell twisting his body, or Westerkamp diving, or, Brandon Riley doing something insane to go get the ball. But this one, it was just straight in the breadbasket. Nobody, I think it was Jalen Lloyd didn't move, touchdown. And that's the stuff. If I'm seeing just guys in stride catching the football like we haven't seen in Nebraska, I mean, there's just a different level in those pro players. If I'm seeing that, where it's just guys in stride, perfect in time, perfect placement, I mean, I'll be just thrilled. I'm like, this guy's next level. We're going to the NFL.
Maybe he could look as good as Jeff Sims.
Yeah, dude. Jeff Sims looked great at the pro. Exactly. Spring game Jeff Sims was built different.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I mean, he looked good.
Terrible.
He looked as good as Princewell, dude. Princewell looked great. When Jeff Sims looked great,
I know.
Like,
we talked about it. We all got bamboozled.
But, I mean, I think Dylan, if we can see any of those pro passes, if I can see freshman year Adrian Martinez highlights,
that'd be something. I mean, obviously the worst case scenario is like what Tanner Mordecai did at Wisconsin last year and threw 4 picks in the spring game. And I mean, unideal. Mordecai did look decent in the season, but nothing, it did take the shine off a little bit and definitely lowered the expectations probably. So you don't want to see something like that. But I'm sure that you could probably spin that into that our defense is going to be amazing and then we'd be fine. The Kool-Aid would still be great.
I mean, I just want to see him throw the ball 50 times and just that's all I want, to be honest.
I mean, because the nice thing is this year is that we know how good this defense should be. So it's actually a pretty good baseline. We're like, last year we had no clue how good the defense was going to be. So it was like, what did we learn in the spring game? No idea. Like the baseline expectation is that the defense should be pretty freaking good. Even if some of the starters don't play, which it sounds like some of the starters may not play on the defensive side.
I mean, we know we have some guys
like Nash and Ty some of these guys. Yeah. So, and Princewell obviously, and it sounds like maybe like Singleton won't be playing, and so there should be a few guys that aren't going to be playing. So we're going to see some other names. For me, it just comes down to I want to see accuracy in the intermediate short term. I just want to see a quarterback that can like
throw over the
middle, hit a timed dime, hit a timed curl, hit a timed comeback, like. Throw towards the sidelines, have a nice bread basket
over the linebacker under the safety.
Things that we haven't seen since like
ever.
Joe Gantz,
ever.
Yeah. It's been over a decade. So it's those types of things that like you want to see to feel confirmation that this guy is at least a little different, that he's a little bit, just a tier above a passer than what we've had over the last 3 or 4 years. And if he does that, then I'll be really excited. Right now, my expectations, I would say, are I have him tampered. I think I've dampened them down a little bit. The negative Nancy Nebraska fan has conquered me since the end of the season.
Cynical,
A little cynical. Yeah, cynical Sally has conquered me a little bit near the end of the season. But also the Jeff Sims effect of last season for how good he looked in the spring game.
I mean, it's terrifying, right?
Yeah, exactly. How we can get rug pulled like that.
But remember the narratives we heard going into was that Jeff Sims, there was some turnover problems. We heard that at camp.
You're right. And that was from Rhule himself.
That was Rhule. Not to mention everybody was
Anthony
saying,
Grant, the fumbles for Anthony Grant and for Jeff Sims, the turnovers were a problem. Both of those
all started this time. We heard those noises.
We did. You're right. And that was mentioned multiple times.
That's not the noises we've been hearing now. Just, knock on wood and just go away.
So you're right. It is strange how many of those spring narratives ended up coming literally 100% true.
I think the quarterback narrative of trying to make a quarterback battle, I personally think it is a strategy by Rhule to try and somehow keep the pressure off Dylan Raiola from just bubbling to absolute.
Keep him humble a little bit.
I mean,
he's literally like the golden boy. I mean, this guy is like walking on water.
There's no, at this point,
he's seen as 100%. The chosen one. I mean, it's almost a little bit unreal at this point.
Yes. So I think it's all part of that. I think maybe not so much for him, but just to try and just keep the pressure off. Not that he's worried about the pressure for him or anything, but just, again, it's just such a bombshell news for Nebraska. The eye is just so focused on him. The national media is focused on him. I think Rhule's just trying to, somehow make it feel normal. I think is what he's trying to do.
So here's a bet. There's two bets. One, will Husker fans leave the spring game more excited about Dylan Raiola or less excited about Dylan Raiola? Go.
Oh, okay. So we're not talking his career. We're talking
about Husker fans. Will they leave the spring game more or less excited about this guy named Dylan Raiola?
Well, let me go off on a limb here and say I'm going to way too early predict that I think he is actually the real deal. So I think this dude is a number 1 overall draft pick player.
Oh, man. Okay, wow.
I'm just gonna set that out there.
Prediction. Damn.
Yeah, I'm gonna set this out here right now, so I could look really, really dumb or really, really smart. I don't
ever seeing him throw a ball in pads for Nebraska. You were calling him a potential first overall pick.
I think he's the first overall pick.
Wow.
I think he is a unicorn that, again, it's pretty hard to fit the mold of what Dylan Raiola is as a QB.
Again, he's Patrick Mahomes mixed with Ben Roethlisberger.
He works with Patrick Mahomes' QB coach. That's been his QB coach for the last however many years. It's pretty insane. I think that he is absolutely the real deal. Does that mean that we'll ever win a national championship with or anything? I don't know. I think that's really hard to do. You have to be a pretty special team to win a national championship. The best in the country. Right. I mean, you have to be pretty. I think most of the time you have to be pretty head and shoulders above, or you have the best quarterback. So I think we're gonna have a chance. I think we'll have a chance. I think the Big Ten's really tough.
Yeah, the thing about like a guy like Drake May. I mean, North Carolina, he's going to be a top 5 pick this year, maybe top 3, maybe so second. Different. He was a 5-star, went to North Carolina. I mean, realistically, he's the best comp to Dylan because he went to one of the non-traditional elite like NFL.
Producing
fair. Producing schools.
He did go to a great coach too,
and Mitch Trubisky did come from North Carolina as well. If that is worth something.
Yeah. But it definitely is. Mitch Trubisky has a great arm.
He's a great backup in the NFL.
Yeah, he really is. Yes, I think he will. I don't know. I think that he'll make some great throws. I think he will
leave the game more or less excited about Dylan Raiola.
I think they'll be equally as excited. I don't think you could get more excited. I think the bar is already at the
if the
apex.
volume turns to 100, you can't break the knob. You can't break the knob.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. The speakers are already maxed
Maybe
out.
I'll speak for myself. I think I'm gonna leave the game more excited about Dylan Raiola. Right now, honestly, I'll be honest. I'm kind of like down. I'm middle of the road.
As you can see, I'm fully in. So
you're in.
It's like
I need to see it. Probably in a game before I make the call, but maybe, who knows? Maybe the spring game will get the Kool-Aid pouring. Okay, so then here's the next bet. Who will look better in the spring game? Daniel Kalen or Heinrich Haarberg?
Kalen, because he's going to be playing lesser opponents. He's going to be playing
cop-out answer.
I don't know if
who do you think's the better quarterback right now?
Haarberg. I think Harburg's the better QB. I would, again, like I said, I would rather have him as the backup.
But will Haarberg play better in the spring game? Because think back to the spring game last year. He literally looked like the worst quarterback of all time.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't think he could throw a football. Like we were.
Which he kind of couldn't.
I mean, it's true. I mean, I don't know. I think he'll look fine. I think what we're going to see Haarberg, you're going to see a couple insane runs that you're like, wow, he's super athletic. And we'll see a couple of throws. It's like, see, he's okay. And then he'll make a couple of throws where it's like,
Oh, you mean like last season?
Yeah, I think the whole roller coaster of last season. I think Kalen's interesting. I think
hard to know.
I think people could leave more excited because I think he'll be accurate. And I think just the hype's there. I think.
I mean, there's already a lot of hype for Kalen. There's some Kalen truthers out there, and I know you guys are watching.
I know, which is crazy, because there's no way that he's better than Dylan Raiola. I mean, period.
I still think it was really dumb of Kalen to come to Nebraska, to be honest. If I'm being honest, he shouldn't have come to Nebraska. But
I think he's going to play his junior year after, I'm excited
Dylan goes 101.
I think after Dylan goes 101, he has a great year to start. We win another natty, and it's awesome. And
maybe he redshirts this year, so he has 2 more years.
That's what I'm saying. He redshirts, and then he has 2 years to then win 2 natties after Dylan's won 4. We go 6 in a row. It's great.
I think I would put my money probably still on Haarberg as well.
I think he's going to have a great run. I just watch him rip off like some 4-yard touchdown run.
at least from the film, I'm not as impressed.
I know he's kind of underwhelming. The arm strength isn't there. He's a pocket passer. I think that right now with our offensive line, it's just not built for him. I don't think the team's built for him yet. I think it can be. I think our offensive line, call me in 2 years, I think where it can be really good, and our wide receiver core is better, and we're winning games, and we're getting better recruits. And I think Kalen's could be there. But I just don't think where our team is yet will lend him to what he needs to be. I mean, because I think he needs to have a really good O-line.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, well, there it is, folks. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Drop your comments down below about what you guys think about the biggest storylines heading into the spring game and your thoughts on all these guys. We'll have another video coming out pretty soon here about the players to watch, so be on the lookout. And check out the Patreon if you want to see us reacting to all of the huddle film of all these true freshmen. We have a video of us reacting to the transfers film as well, so check that out. And links down in the description for that. But as always, guys, I'm Josh. That's Caleb. This has been Big Red Homestead. And guys, we'll see you next time.
Go Big Red.
Go Big Red, baby.